G'day, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me. So I recently did the video on the 90 FPS camera, and well, Ryan asked to see the waterproofing, and well, when Ryan asks, Ryan gets. Yeah, so I've put that together and that's what we're going to do now. A quick few notes before we do get into it. The goal of this process here is to ruggedize the device such that you can use it in the outdoor environment, and that includes wet grass, wet leaves, puddles and such like that. If you follow the process in this video, you should get that protection. If you want to take your craft swimming, you may need to extrapolate beyond what you're shown in this video. I believe it's not too hard to do and you could do it, but there would be certain other measures you may need to take. For instance, without sort of doubling anything in the video, the lens, you know how the lens screws in, you may want to seal that area as well as the other areas we discussed today. So one other thing I want to cover. I'm using this conformal coating here. That's the MG Chemicals 422C, I believe, although it's had some gump on it. But I'll put a link down below to the product I've got. Yeah, 422C. That's not cheap. This is about 60 Australian dollars a bottle. It's also quite poisonous. You don't want to keep it on your skin, you don't want to get it on your skin, you don't want to breathe it if you get it in your eye. There's a procedure, follow it. There are other options and I'll go and get those. Now, I don't have all the options here, but and to also, these are not really applicable to this situation as we do the process in this video. They could be used if you did it in with another process. Sorry. But yeah, so here I've got, what is this? Servicol protective board lacquer, and this will coat the board in a hard lacquer and can be worked through. I've found it does make it a little difficult to solder, so some of this stuff is a must. This is the corresponding cleaning product for it. The other solution, which is quite commonly used, and old hands in the hobby will know, is Corrosion X. Now, Corrosion X is extremely expensive in Australia, quite difficult to get, and also, from what I've heard, having never actually used it because I can't get my hands on it cheaply and easily, but having studied, options, it leaves a sticky residue on the surface, and it's not really suitable for something that's going to be in a dusty environment like a quad. So I don't think it's a good option. So that goes back to the conformal coating, and that's what we're going to use in this video. And I can't think of any more points I really want to say. So thanks for asking for the video, Ryan. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you are going to waterproof this kind of thing, take it and put it in your nice electrical clamp that you hopefully have. If you don't have it, then you're going to have to find a good way of securing it. You don't want to put much pressure on this. It's just you want to have a nice hold on it and don't want the thing moving around on you unexpectedly. You could also try putting the screws back in to hold the board down in place and improve that seal. The one issue that you might get with that is, of course, that the screws compensate for the height of this piece here. And so if you screw them all the way down in here, you could damage the casing. And because of that, I'm not going to do it. Where's my glue out? Get back in there, you glue, shoe glue. Alright, so eek. There are two schools of thought on this. And this being removing this plug. This being removing this plug here, or not, when you waterproof. I would, under normal circumstances, if I had clearance in this area behind, I would That's not going to help. I would leave the plug in, but I don't have clearance in this area. So I am thinking I'm going to remove this plug, pop, pop, and do my waterproofing. There we go. Hold my plug. Right, so to avoid any mishaps, make sure you turn your work so that you're not gonna go over this area. In addition, whilst doing this particular job, I'm gonna make sure that when I put the brush in, that I'm wiping these off. No drips. I only want minimal on there for this job in particular. I don't want it seeping around the sides. Very careful, very mindful of that. So, Mike from the future here. I thought it'd be a good idea to come in and do a bit of voiceover and talk about what I'm doing. So here you can see my brush strokes are moving away from that trouble area, being the plug. And even when I'm on the other side, I'm not coming near it. Anyway, back to Mike from the past. You need to support your hand to ensure the most stability, then do so. If you need to hold your hand in 5 different spots to ensure the most stability, do so. That is my kit. Yeah, actually, definitely like that more. Okay, so take note that here, you see how my brush is coming along at a very sharp angle to the plane of the board, and that's to help assist me control the tip. Okay, really inspect the work. Alright, and I'm back again. So I just want to quickly, I've paused the footage. You see how I've left that spot there? That's probably okay on this chip, given that it's not going to get too hot, but do not do that kind of weird patterning on top of a chip that's going to get quite warm. In fact, you might want to leave it just to the sides, only waterproof the sides of it, and leave the top bare in order to ensure that the heat can get away from the silicon inside in a uniform manner. If you have this kind of covering on a high power chip, it's gonna end up cracking that silicon or damaging it quicker. This is mainly because the covered surface will lose heat slower than the uncovered surface, and the temperature inside the chip will then have a slight variation across the chip. Anyway, enough of that aside, let's get back to the show. Alright, some touching up to do. Once again, note how I'm coming right along, and I've got a really steep angle on that brush to get right up in there and not go too far, and that allows me the most control along with supporting my hand. Now I want to check that again. Excuse my head. Okay, that looks good. Come from all angles to make sure, and we spin the mount around. Now this is the really challenging bit. These pins could possibly wick the coating up, and you really want to avoid that. So yeah, very sparing amounts on the brush. In fact, do you know what? Second thoughts. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to do the other side with the plug back on it. That way I can ensure that I'm not going to screw up, because at this point I've done the bit that's hard to get to, and I don't need the plug off to have access to the other side. So I'm going to put the plug on. We'll be back then. Alright, so this side is dried. It's time to do this side. Let's get on with it. Once again, a nice steady hand is the name of the game. So now waiting for that to dry, now I just got to do these side bits here and here, and that should be fine. Come back in a moment. Okay, so now we've just got to come along and do a very sparing layer of conformal coating just along these edges here. I'm going to muse a little bit now and say, if you really did want to, you know, get this for taken for a swim, then just more of this process would be probably apt. And hell, if you don't ever want to take the plug off, you can just seal that thing on there. Okay, let these two ends dry and then we'll do the other ones. Okay, so these should be dry by now. Let's swap it over to the other sides. I'll probably just do those on the bench. Mike from the future again. I have to apologize, the footage from this section from the top-down camera is missing, so we're just going to use the footage from the other side, as I guess, you know, all sides are more or less equal. However, there is a tip for helping to move forward without having to wait for it to dry, so let's get straight to that. So here's the other side, and if you want to just quickly move on from doing this side, put a screw in here and lean it like that and you won't touch the wet bit. I'll turn it around like that and we'll get the job done. Oh, careful with those drips. Always got to be mindful of the drips. They'll drag you down, they will. Alright, there we go. That is done. Time to put it in a quad in a moment. Well, we're going to skip that bit here. So there you go. That is how you waterproof or at least water resist one of these cameras. That'll protect the electronics on the back of that board, and on the side of the board it won't stop water from getting into the sensor. The sensor does have a glass cover over it, so I presume it's glass. So that should be okay, maybe. You could go further, remove that soft stuff behind this plastic, and then, you know, put it back on after waterproofing. I don't think that's really necessary unless you're planning to go swimming with your drone. But for everyday use and dew on the grass and trees and such like that, maybe the occasional quick dip, it might survive a quick dip. Yeah, I haven't done too much swimming with my drones, but I've done plenty of flying into wet grass and stuff like that, and I've even lost parts from that. So it's worth doing this just to protect it. Like, if you get really unlucky, you can literally put a quad together, go out, land in a wet piece of grass that's not been in the sun in the morning or whatever, or maybe someone's weed there, and, you know, it gets on the ESC and pff, fry, or it gets in the camera and pff, fry. So you just want to do it. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and you find it useful and the information valuable. Please do like and subscribe if you did, and I'll catch you next time.